Super Paper Mario is a grossly contrived hybrid of action platformer and role-playing game. It is such a grossly contrived hybrid that the result is these sometimes very clever and fun platforming segments that are made entirely too short-lived and completely unenjoyable by these huge boring chunks of RPG crap. The catch of Super Paper Mario is that instead of the traditional turn-based formula, except with the Mario flavor that had previously defined the series, the battles now take place on even more traditional side-scrolling levels. Instead of being taken to a battle screen after jumping on an enemy, as it was in the previous two Paper Marios, now the enemies just die like in any other Mario game. But what would otherwise be an obviously shallow, if still rudimentarily fun platformer where you just happen to level up every now and then, must be disguised by excessive world-class production values. Nintendo is really good at this sort of thing. Oh, and there's this gameplay gimmick, or was it the cornerstone of the entire game design? I couldn't tell. Where the player can convert the 2D plane of the level into a 3D version. At first, this was admittedly kind of brilliant because there are portions of the game where it is either impossible or needlessly deadly to attempt to traverse in the traditional Mario sense. For example, there is a section where a particularly aggressive group of spike-studded thwomps blocks the way forward, and they're thwomping so fast and so often that to even entertain the notion of running underneath them is totally ridiculous. The solution? Flip the level into 3D, and simply bypass all the thwomps to the left of the screen. Since the thwomps are no more than thin two-dimensional sprites, they can't physically exist along a z-axis. Unfortunately, this kind of ingenuity is rare, and most of the game is designed around the player coming up against some sort of roadblock in 2D mode, and then just pressing the A button to shift perspective and immediately reveal the transparent and tailored solution. Actually, now that I think about it, enemies in fact don't just die after being jumped on. Some do, but only if Mario's jump attack deals more damage than they have hit points. Isn't that bizarre? Think back to Super Mario Bros. Each enemy was essentially broken down into whether you could or could not jump on them. Goombas, yes. Spinies, no. Koopa Troopas took 2 jumps because of their shells, and Paratroopas 3 because of their wings and then their shells. They were all part of a coherent system. In Super Paper Mario, there is no such coherent system. Everything is a mess. I think there actually does exist some kind of classical progression with the Koopas, where simply jumping on their shelled or winged forms doesn't immediately kill them, but does that mean they don't apply to the hit points rule? What if I've leveled up so much that my jump attack does like 20 damage? Shouldn't my infinitely superior stats immediately and irrevocably obliterate them in a tiny nuclear explosion of fire flower fireballs? That would actually be awesome. I don't know, but I think the option to buy elemental attack items that magically murder all on-screen enemies defeats the purpose of platforming combat at all. I realize that random and turn-based battles have been sort of taboo for a while now. Ever since technology allowed for systems far more fluid, the notion of a battle screen has been chastised as an archaic trope of the Japanese role-playing game. Why then do random battles continue to persist? Sure, they're nonsensical, uninvolving, and jarring, but perhaps entirely by accident, their development over the years has, I think, given rise to a specific kind of game that undoubtedly has its place. I enjoy turn-based games because they aren't very taxing and I can often do other things while playing them, such as read a book, prepare a meal, or even have on a movie in the background while I level grind. So, the recent trend in gaming to eradicate or reinvent the turn-based battle altogether strikes me as, well, silly. At least, I found recent attempts at this hybridization of the real-time and the turn-based consistently awkward. Take such high-profile releases as Valkyria Chronicles and Final Fantasy XIII. Concerning the former, a gridless turn-based strategy game doesn't make any sense, and concerning the latter, Square Enix just let Final Fantasy turn into an action game already. I think it feels especially awkward when side-scrolling Mario is one half of the chimera, one half of the engineered abomination that abrasively goes against the natural order. It's like wearing plaid platform shoes with a tuxedo. There's such quintessence in the simple act of jumping on things' heads in a Mario game that a player doesn't want to stop. Super Paper Mario subverts one counterintuitive text box or puzzle piece after another to hamper what we've all been taught as gamers since the beginning. Run to the right to win. There was one instance in the game where after several hazy minutes of the storybook schlock that the game calls its plot, I awakened from this coma to realize that I, apparently, was now in control of Luigi. I say apparently because I couldn't actually control him, for this was a cutscene. As the text box above bore away with the finer points of the quest, I noticed that the speech bubble was sprouting forth from none other than a Goomba. For the rest of the cutscene, I couldn't help but stare longingly at this little crony. Primal urges began to swell up. Finally, the chatting ceased, and, completely instinctively, my consciousness surely played no part in this. I proceeded to jump on said Goomba-turned NPC's head. Luigi fell right through him, in the sad and unfulfilling way that attacks upon NPCs always do. I soon recovered from the utter confusion that such a cruel subversion could only result in. Oh right, this is Paper Mario. But for one horrifying moment, up was down. Super Paper Mario isn't just full of this kind of basic wrongness. It seems to have been built upon it from the ground up. I haven't even mentioned the worst part. Super Paper Mario does the unthinkable and takes away Mario's most quintessential action after the jump. It takes away the B-button dash. This is just unforgivable, especially when its function is replaced by a context-sensitive action button with interchangeable abilities that must be assigned via menu. I can't think of a better example for why such genre mixing shouldn't occur, why something so dexterous and as physically charged as platforming should be mixed with the pronounced methodology of menu driving. Get this. One of those selectable abilities that can be assigned to the context-sensitive button grants Paper Mario the gift of picking up and throwing things. I guess RPGs were only ever meant to go so fast because this crippling of the glorious and revered B button means no dashing and no picking up Koopa shells. I mean, you can pick them up when that ability is equipped, but then and only then, and they don't even slide after being thrown. That's probably more indicative of what kind of game this is than anything else I could say.